these, so those that are unable to join us are able to watch it and hopefully get caught up. I am going to drop a full agenda into the chat box, and here we go. Fabulous. This has all of our links, and I would just like everyone to go through. I am blessed enough to know all of you, but I know that all of you do not have a chance to know each other. So I'm going to skip the introduction for me, and I'm going to call out Erin. Erin, can you tell us who you are and where you work? And
Right. I'm Erin Bell. I work with the OPSRC, and we are the regional partner for code.org. And I know a lot of you through that. And I'll just give a fun fact. I got to be the person after Karen at one of my jobs that I had in elementary computer science. I followed in Karen's footsteps there. So I was excited to see the elementary information on the agenda today. So good to be here, and I'm going to call on a code.org facilitator, Tammy.
Yes, that's one of the other hats I get to wear enthusiastically. So I am Tammy Parks. I am at Howell Public Schools. This is my 20th year at Howell. It's a small rural school in southeastern Oklahoma. Wear many hats. I'm the instructional technology coordinator for the entire district, federal programs director. I am a computer science teacher in the classroom for 2 hours. I love it. And then I'm also the code.org CS Discoveries facilitator for Oklahoma. And I think I've been in that position for about 4 years now. So glad to see you guys today. And I am going to throw it over to Kristen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Tanner. I'm the Computer Science Program Manager for Tulsa Regional STEM Alliance. And I will tag Jamie because I know you from somewhere and I'm trying to think where. So.
Hi, I am Jamie Sparks. I'm the Computer Science teacher at Edmond North. And I think it's just via these different conferences and CSPA, Oklahoma, etc. But I'm happy to be with you guys and help any way I can. Oh, and I'll toss it over to Tom.
Hi, Jamie. It's nice to see you. I think you're going to be one of our teachers next year, actually. So that was very good. I am Tanya Norwood. I am with the State Department of Career Tech in the STEM division. And I'll toss it over to, let's see, Kaylee-Ann.
Callie-Ann.
Had it right.
I'm Callie Newman. I'm an assistant professor of educational technology at OSU, and I am the one who kind of oversees our undergraduate course for pre-service teachers. To Delaney.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tudor Lenny, as you know, and I am an associate professor at OSU. I run the Emerging Technologies and Creativity Research Lab, in addition to having the pleasure of being Callie's colleague. So I will pass it over to Daryl. Might have to unmute.
I can't hear you.
I've only done about 2,000 Zoom meetings in the last few months. I should know how to mute by now. I'm Daryl Glover. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of OASA at COSA.
well, thank you again for all of you. I think that, oh, wait, Kathy, we have Kathy Deerenwater here as well, I believe.
Hi, I'm Kathy Deerenwater. I work for the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, and I am our Chief Program Officer. In ACES, if you're not familiar, we support Native students and professionals in science, technology, engineering, and math, and have been doing a lot of work in the CS Ed space. This is my son, who was home from school. Hi. But yeah, I was unable to make the first meeting, but I'm really excited to be here. ACES is a national organization, but I work out of Shawnee, Oklahoma, and I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma.
I love continents.
And Jonius loves continents.
That's pretty awesome. Well, thank you again, all of you, for joining us. Like I said, I did put the link in there, and I don't think that the link worked initially. So hopefully it does now. I'm just so excited to have such a wide range of people and expertise and background. And I know we are a little OSU heavy on the higher education side, but you know, as a student of their program, I thought it was also a wonderful way to get them involved in the computer science field. So go Pokes, good. Our agenda, just a couple reminders. Last time when we met, I did have a shared folder in our Google Drive, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone had access to that folder. You are welcome to share anything there. I will store the videos, the agendas, everything we talk about. And one of our topics last month, seems like forever ago, is I was able to introduce the Oklahoma Academic Standards for Computer Science, and also the Programs of Excellence rubric for computer science. And if you have not yet had a chance to look through those documents and become a little bit more familiar, I would highly recommend that, because those two will pretty much be the basis of everything that we're working on and building upon within this advisory committee. So you will have access to those. And also last time when we met, I was able to give you kind of an overview more of the history of computer science in Oklahoma. And today, I would like to share a little bit about where we are right now. And I really am going to use a notice and wonder technique that our friend Annie Fetter, who is from Swarthmore College, really uses a lot. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is kind of giving you an idea of where we are in Oklahoma with computer science right now. And please feel free at any time to unmute yourself, ask questions. I would like some of this to be interactive. So right now, our current overview is kind of exciting. Right now, this is our overview of pre-K 8 computer science. And I would like you to notice that there are 107 public or charter schools right now that offer pre-K through 8 computer science in some facet or form. That does not include any of the private schools. They do not have access to any of those data or that data. But I would like you to take a second, and I would love to hear some noticing and wondering about some of the information that you're seeing in this graph, because I think it's going to be really important for you to kind of process this before we go on to some of the higher grades. And you are welcome to either just verbally share a notice or wonder, or put it into the chat.
I'm going to share my wonder, and I think we talked about this last time, but are these, you know, what is computer science, I guess, at some of these schools? What is that defined as? Because I know in a lot of places, you know, a typical just computer class, I guess, like computer skills, like PowerPoint and stuff like that, that's called computer science. So I think that's a major wondering for me.
And I noticed that overall enrollment is up. So that's good. But I agree with Callie that what is it defined as?
I'm noticing that the pre-K to second numbers went down in 2021. And I'm wondering, as a person with an early childhood background, if teachers pulled back, seeing some of the activities that they maybe tried to do were not developmentally appropriate. Wondering if they were trying to rethink some things. And that's why the numbers dropped.
And I'm wondering, Erin, it's such a small decline. I'm wondering if it's even maybe one school that decided not to offer it.
Maybe, or even a few teachers, you know, because that could be really teacher dependent. So you could have had teachers that were just not comfortable with it too.
I'm wondering.
Just for some-
No,
Go ahead, please.
Now I'm wondering how it would compare to other subjects. Is it just in computer science where there's that kind of a sharp decline, or is it, you know, as students are getting a little bit older and they're starting to sort themselves into what they believe they like and do not like? I wonder how that would compare to other subjects.
I'm really enjoying hearing some of your discussions and your thoughts because, you know, I'm able to view things in one way, but a couple of those questions that you brought up are really making me stop and think as well. So these were specific course code courses or subject code courses. So this does not include any possible integration. These were aligned or designed as standalone courses, which something that we're going to talk about a little bit later today is kind of what Dr. Newman brought up about computer apps courses versus computer science and making sure that that distinction is really known. And another question I had was, we've seen a lot of discussion about the decrease in overall enrollment for maybe pre-K and K students. And I just didn't know if any of that could have made some changes or affected that. So now we're going to move on to our 912. And I'm going to give you some time to notice and wonder and share some thoughts there. This does not include the CTE. I believe our next slide will have solely CTE just because there's so many different course codes and it was difficult to get everything in on one slide.
I think for me, just you kind of hinted at this, but or someone did, with just the pandemic, I'm wondering if, you know, students are not taking courses as they were like a year ago, simply because maybe they're not enrolled in the traditional schools where we're getting the data from.
So in Edmond, I knew a lot of students that were going to return to me. They maybe had my entry-level CS class, and I was expecting to see them, and they are all virtual. And our virtual program does not have any computer science offering. So another thing that I noticed is APCSA, the big drop there. I also saw a big drop. I think we did across the district into CSA. Again, we don't know if, because our typical kid, maybe again, they're virtual, but it's being seen as, oh, it's really hard. So we're trying to change the narrative a little bit on that, but it's interesting to see that it has such an extreme drop across the board on APCSA.
Do you know how many IB schools are in Oklahoma?
You know what? That's a great question, and I will look that up. I should know that, but I didn't. I don't have that data right off the top.
I was just curious because I mean I know those numbers are low, but I don't think that there are many. And obviously, it looks like that increased a bit. But I'd be curious to know that. I used to teach at one, and I think Tutalani attended one growing up.
As far as I know, it would just be Booker T, Washington, and Classen. Are there others?
I don't know.
I know Booker T is. I didn't know about Classen.
I think I've looked it up for my own kids. I think that it's just Booker T and Classen.
Okay, that's good to know. I think it'll also be interesting. We received some of the AP testing data. For some reason, it doesn't look like they're giving us the disaggregated data that they normally do in terms of male, female, and scoring 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with all of the genders and everything. But we do know that also not only was the enrollment down in AP courses, but obviously the testing number of students that tested last year was down, and that's not very surprising given the environment. It will be interesting to see the number of students that take the AP test this year and see how that compares with maybe the 2018-19 school year, to see kind of if some of that's back there.
Karen, do you guys get the IB test data?
We do not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen any. But that's another great question I hadn't thought to ask. We've got in the chat, Aaron was saying the pre-K2 drop-off could be just Edmond because many families chose Epic or virtual or homeschool. And Tammy said, same wondering, virtual CS offerings may be limited. Did the decreases mirror the percentage of students who are choosing to stay virtual? Those are wonderful things that, again, I probably wouldn't have thought right off the top of my head. I was thinking different, just differently. And I think it'll, once again, will be interesting to see next year and how much of this was because students didn't have the devices or the capability. And I'm sure, Tammy, that could be something that you may be able to address.
Well, and I piggybacked on that thought because I've seen that in my own district, even though we're small, our virtual students who chose virtual enrollment were taking CS offerings through some third-party software and found the course to be very difficult. In fact, I was approached about teaching a virtual CS course through code.org. I'm teaching it face-to-face. I was approached to teach it virtual. So I picked up 8 students second semester, pulling those back in who are virtual. So because they wanted a connection to a on-campus teacher. So I felt like, I'm seeing percentages that mirror what we as a district are serving in virtual, who choose virtual. So yeah, it would be interesting to kind of correlate that.
And it would also be interesting because we know this data came from about October. So it does not include any that may have transferred in or out or returned to traditional classes. Our last data is the CTE enrollment, which I really want to hear some notice and wonders on this because it's very different.
I'm always that kid who has to talk first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it kind of reminds me, I don't know. So I put this in one of the documents, but I know companies like Google and Amazon are now kind of pushing, some of the different CS careers through their own trainings. And so they're, making a push to intentionally hire people that don't necessarily have college degrees, but they're going through these different trainings with them. And I would be very curious to know if that had, not just those companies, but a lot of the companies are doing stuff like that, if that has piqued anyone's interest, especially during the pandemic.
I can chime in a little bit on this data right here. I can tell you some of the reason why there's such an increase is due to the way the timeline runs as far as course approval with the regions. Schools typically plan in January or February for their course offerings for the next year, but the regions don't send us approval for Oklahoma Promise Credit and et cetera until usually February, March. So then we can't get it out to our teachers until later. So some of the teachers did not realize some of these courses would be available. And so they weren't worked into their schedule. And so now that they are available, That's why you see this increase in the numbers, and it'll probably steadily go up just because these courses are new courses to CTE.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because I mean, like the CS Essentials is nearly doubled, which is truly exciting and great. And again, it will be interesting. I'm trying to think when we receive the AP data, I don't believe it's disaggregated from CTE versus the public or charter schools. So I would really like to be able to see some of that differentiation as well. And on a side note, I don't know if any of you had heard maybe about a month ago that, and Aaron will be able to share more about this, Oklahoma was selected as one of 5 states to be the pilot states for the new code.org APCSA curriculum. Anything you can share about that, Aaron? I don't even know a list of the schools that were selected or teachers.
I still have not been given that information. They really did that in a separate way. The regional partners were not involved in that selection, and I think that's good. There was an application process that they went through with code.org separate from us. And so I'm still waiting to hear who the pilot schools are, but I think that that group of teachers will have a really great opportunity to collaborate, provide feedback, let code.org know what works, what doesn't work. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for us as a state, but I do not have a lot of that information yet because it's sort of in a different branch of code.org, but I will let you know as soon as I find out.
Fabulous. A couple other things to share with you kind of as we move on. I'm really big into visuals because I think that that just kind of helps me see. And as I'm looking at this, this was a good way for me to see, you know, right now in terms of pre-K-8, our Panhandle just doesn't have much. And I would love to hear some thoughts on what can we do to try to reach out to some of them. And we know probably most of that's going to be due to maybe integration because, you know, the schools are so small and they don't have the manpower or the training or the background for that. But I thought that that was really interesting to kind of see where PK8 is. And then this is even more exciting to me because this is 912 across the state. So I think if you would have seen a map like this maybe 5 years ago, we would see dramatic changes. But one of the questions that I'm supposed to ask you is, as we push to increase access to computer science, what is lost for our students by possibly requiring all schools to have a CS program or CS classes? You know, what is lost in that push? Any thoughts?
I'm thinking there could be possibly at the high school level a loss of electives. So my kids were very big in band and wanted to be music majors. So I know they already had to give up some things. They couldn't participate in multiple things because it would interfere with band. So I think the more we start requiring, then possibly the less choice that they have.
I think I totally agree. It's having been in the position trying to put this in back at my previous school. At the elementary level, you're going to lose a special that they rotate to, or I hate to say this, there's so much of an emphasis on reading and math, which there should be. It was hard for us to get our teachers to even take the time to incorporate science and social studies. So now you add CS. I can't see it anywhere except a rotational special that kids go to, which is what we tried to do with ours. And as you go up to the high school, I agree with Kristen totally. It's what do they give up? Because there is a lot. Now, people say, well, the extracurriculars aren't as important, but they are to these kids. That's what motivates them to be there. And putting it after school is not the extracurriculars after school is not the best solution for them either, in reality. But I'm going to go to another issue, and that's getting the staff and having the money for the staff. Schools may have stimulus money, but they faced $200 per weighted ADM cuts this year. Their budgets that when the stimulus money's gone, they've got to come up with that. So there's a whole lot of issues to mandating, Karen.
Karen, you might be aware of this. So in Georgia, I know the state has kind of I don't know if it's an agreement with the university system, but in high schools, and correct me if this is totally wrong, I've recently, I think, checked it, but if students take computer science classes in high schools, the colleges from the state that are part of the state system will accept some of those courses as their foreign language requirement.
So here in Oklahoma, as far as high school credit, students can either take computer science or world language for high school credit. Actually, it goes even beyond that because it can be any computer class. So it could be computer apps, which see, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, because to me, a computer apps class does not have the same skills or the same weight as a computer science class, especially when you're comparing it to world language. And then kind of piggybacking from that, our world language director just appreciates the skills and content students can learn in computer science, but she's afraid that schools are going to possibly remove some of their world language offerings, and that's a great loss as well. Yeah, and I'm not sure if colleges here accept, I know they'll accept it for entrance, but I'm not sure if they'll accept that for language credit. Okay.
And I think in Georgia, they accept it for entrance. I don't know, if, I'm not sure if AP and IB credits can be accepted in that way or not.
Okay.
As college credit.
So are we talking about requiring schools to offer the courses or requiring students to take the courses?
Okay, well, legislation that has been proposed, and I have not honestly looked back to see where it is. I know it had passed maybe through the House and was going into the Senate, was stating that all schools would be required to have a CS course. And I believe that would go into effect 24-25 school year. Not saying that students are required to take it, and not saying the school has to actually have students in the class. It has to be a course offering. Does that make, it's always those little wording things. What are some of the,
On that legislation, one thing I think to note, it does say, because I've been looking at it quite a bit, a virtual option does fulfill that requirement. So they don't necessarily have to have a teacher on site teaching it. So if there were several schools that decided, that they could work together to have one teacher that does that maybe for 3 area schools or something, or if there's a virtual class that the students could do, that counts.
And I think that collective virtual option might be really great for especially some of our rural schools or small schools that just don't have the capacity or the training for that.
Chime in right quick, Karen, is also, some of our technology centers that offer computer science programs, they can help some of those sending schools as well. So, and that the one thing about our as far as requirements right now, it states 2 computer classes, computer technology classes. And I would hate to lose those technology classes for those students on the creative side, because
Right.
it's as important for those students on the creative side. And I can tell you one thing that I've heard over and over from our technology, biomed, engineering, and biotech is the students will come to them and not have computer skills, meaning they don't know how to save a file, they don't know how to organize their files, and those kinds of things are a real problem. They don't know how to use Word, they don't know how to use Excel. So I would never discount the importance of those applications, because it's like Excel, that if you look at any job offering in the state, the majority of them advertise, I want to know that they have Excel skills. So I think some of those skills are critical to our students if they are going to be successful in the work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand the need for them. I think we just need to make sure that when they're being taught that there is a delineation between computer apps and computer science, so that we're being purposeful in that.
And
I'm
that's where
noticing
the difference is between a computer technology credit and computer science. Those are 2 totally and completely different things.
Mhm.
we're still working out that detail at the school level. I get kids that think they've signed up for the Google course to, do Word docs and things like that. And they're like, whoa, I am having to think. And again, it is more similar to learning a foreign language. There's a lot of thought and so forth. So I know Edmund has talked about separating computer apps from computer science, because like I said, we're still getting a lot of confusion at the school level even.
Well, so you can kind of see where we are. It's almost like, we look at the code.org, the 9 areas, and we know that we're doing pretty well, and the fact that we're meeting many of those, but such as possibly requiring it for graduation, which we don't have, but we have our state standards. We have a person in my role that does that. So we're making progress, but I think, it's going to be really important for us as a group to always examine both sides. What are the benefits and what's being lost for our students, so that we're being very purposeful in all that we do. So just trying to have that good discussion, because one of our goals during the last meeting was to try to think of some of the, and I accidentally closed my agenda, but I'm getting there. Let me get that March agenda. There we go. I kind of asked for you to share some of your visions, and maybe visions for the elementary, middle, and high, and are those the right visions, and what are some possible challenges and solutions? So especially after our discussion today, I would love to have you have the opportunity to kind of go back into this document and add some other thoughts. It's great to be able to have a dialogue in there as well. And I think that that's going to be a good place for us to refer back to as we move forward in this process of, trying to build the program, but be very purposeful and conscientious as we do that. A couple other things that I wanted to share with you and talk through for this meeting is I'm going to share another link. This is pretty exciting, and did I share anything about the instructional materials rubric last meeting? Does that sound familiar? I don't think so. Okay, so I just linked a document. This has been something that we are working on. Every 3 years, both computer apps and computer science curriculum are up for adoption due to the changes. Normally, I think it's like 5 or 6 years for other content areas. And we are going into the adoption process for CS curriculum. this year. Normally, the publishers submit their curriculum to the state textbook committee, and that committee goes through like all of the different content areas. And we're in the process of revising that entire process through legislation. We will be asking for volunteers to serve on the computer science application or instructional materials committee. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen this time. And there we go. And that. And this document here is something that I've worked hard on, and I would love to have feedback. We're getting close to the publishing part, but basically, this is something that the state textbook committee will be able to use to decide what tier the different curriculum and materials are. And we've set aside 4 gateways: alignment to standards, learning progressions and coherence, equity, instructional support, usability and assessment, and access and technology. Like I said, it is still in draft form, but if you're a person who is daily working with that curriculum, is there something that is missing from this rubric? Something that you don't feel may be important that's on there? Or, I don't have a lot of access to curriculum. So when I was trying to use this rubric to examine different curriculum, I was trying to see, would this work? Are there any curricula out there that will be able to pass this to be like a tier 1, highly recommended, or tier 2, almost there? So if you could look through there and share any thoughts or ideas in comments within that, and keep it in the back of your mind that maybe if you know some people that might be interested in serving in that committee, we'll be sharing information on that soon so that we can make sure we have quality curriculum in our students' hands. And the other big thing that I kind of wanted to touch upon before we finish for today is it kind of reflects back on what we've been talking about. We have subject codes for all of our courses, pre-K through 12. Right now, our SDE subject codes have no description as to what they are. They have no definite tie-ins to the different standards. And a student may be taking a CS1 course in one district that is teaching what that district feels is appropriate for CS1, and a student in another district across the state could be taking that same course, but there may be no commonality in what's being taught, which is really scary to me because, how do you distinguish CS1 for CS2? It's pretty easy for us to look at our AP courses because, our College Board gives us pretty good guidance. So if you're looking in our agenda and you go down to number 7, what I have done is actually in our shared folder, there's several things. There's actually the documents that distinguish all of our course codes for pre-K through 12. So you are able to see the different courses offered. In 7C, there's a document that I've created called Course Code Descriptions. And what I've done is kind of gone through what different districts across the state use as their possibly course code or subject code offerings for specifically high school at this point, and try to pull out some commonalities so that we can examine and give, every school has their right to kind of vary from what is offered in that course, but we really need to have some kind of strong description that will help guide schools. And address the different standards. So I don't know, some of you are very familiar with computer science courses. Some of you are just kind of learning, but I would love to have any volunteers that might be able to just kind of meet for 30 minutes sometime with me and just kind of talk through some of what we do have, especially in that last document, the course code descriptions. I would love to have you share any comments, thoughts, ideas. My goal is that when we meet again, I will try to have some firm, editable descriptions that I can share with you. And so that maybe you can share some feedback, or you might be saying, hey, I think this course really needs to focus on this, or this is what's missing. And that will be our next goal kind of moving forward. So if you have some time over the next few months to kind of look through there, and anyone that would be able to meet with me in a smaller group and kind of talk through what should be in each course, I would greatly appreciate that. So based upon the time, I'm trying to be very cognizant. And if I can get you out of here in under an hour, I think that's absolutely great. So I just kind of want to go back through and summarize some of what we've done today. It was great for us to be able to go through and kind of discuss where we are in terms of course enrollment right now across the state, and share some of the losses and gains that would be involved with the increase of CS access for our students. Again, hopefully have you go back and add to our visions for CS in our schools, and again, reflect upon some of the things we've talked about and what are some additional maybe challenges or solutions that maybe we didn't get a chance to talk about today. And just kind of go through and look at some of the course codes or subject codes that we have, and even your input on this should be a core class versus this should be an elective class, or this should be a remedial class. And honestly, I don't think in terms of computer science, we're anywhere near the remedial class designation yet, but thank you for your time. And I would like to have us meet quarterly, maybe with some smaller group meetings in between based upon need. And with that in mind, I will try to schedule a meeting sometime in June. I hope that that would be okay. And I will send out a doodle poll again to try and sometime by the end of this week to find out what would be best for all of you. I know it's difficult to coordinate a meeting time to have everyone involved, so thank you. Is there anything, questions or ideas or something that I've missed, or something you think that maybe another thing that we should be looking forward to or doing? Okay, well, based upon that, I really cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, because if you know me and my background at all, I am ed tech based. So computer science is something I've kind of dabbled with on the side. I can get the K-5 computer science, but I need some of your expertise and knowledge, especially when we get beyond the middle school. And I just appreciate all of your thoughtfulness and everything that you are going to do to help blaze this trail in Oklahoma. So thank you again for your time. And I'm just going to hang out here if any of you have any other questions, and I will send you a doodle poll for our next meeting. Thank you. Bye, Gerald.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Karen, I had a quick question. When I was
Yes.
looking at the standards and the programs of excellence, are our standards based on national standards, or are they our own? Because I feel like when you're looking at curriculum and they all make theirs aligned to national standards, that it's hard to find something that fits when it's not, but I wasn't sure. And I was in another meeting where they were talking about it, and I was like, I don't know if ours are or not.
That's kind of the challenge, especially when we were creating that instructional materials rubric, is you're not going to find curriculum aligned to Oklahoma standards. Our standards were based from the CSTA standards, but CSTA standards were grade banded. And Oklahoma, when they were going through this, really wanted to be able to break it down grade level by grade level to make sure that those individual skills are taught and built upon scaffolding, so that it's not third grade is learning the same thing that fifth grade is learning. It's just a repeat. Although honestly, in terms of some of these CS skills, I'm not sure how much could be a repeat because they're always doing and expanding and creating. So it does make it a challenge. I do have some crosswalks between CSTA and our standards that I will go ahead and add into our shared drive because I think that that's a great idea and I hadn't thought to do that.
Yeah, that's helpful because somebody was like, well, they're aligned to ISTE, and I think they're, and I'm like, well, I don't know which ones ours are aligned to with a separate curriculum. So knowing
Right.
ours are most comparable with CSTA is helpful. So
yes.
Okay.
Almost word for word in some cases with just the extension or deletion of some of those skills at different grade levels.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Bye.
See you later.
I mean, it would help if I unmute myself.
Well, it's good to see you again.
Likewise. I had a quick question about when you asked the question about that map and what does it make us think of. I didn't share this because I didn't know how much of this would be the platform. But for me, what always comes to my mind is the way sort of computer science is introduced and taught in schools sort of globally. I'm concerned that it ends up creating this idea that unless you know how to be a good programmer, you have no future in the world, right?
Right.
So one of the things that we have done in our work, and I think we've done the project that I'm talking about, we did with Cassidy School in Oklahoma City, is sort of emphasize computational thinking and have students work in projects together, where you have people who was a small project using something like MIT App Inventor, where somebody's doing the coding, somebody's developing a game. So one is doing coding, the other person is doing music because they want to do that, the other person is doing drawing, sort of those type of interconnections. So that way computer science doesn't just become this thing that's only limited to the computer science class, but it's also integrated around the classroom and also talks. So I guess the question for me was, is the mandate as you see it, is it also to talk about things like computational thinking as part of computer science? Is it also sort of look at those type of integrated approaches, or is it really more strictly on what is the computer science curriculum going to look like? What are we going to be teaching in that curriculum?
I'm going to unmute. My dog is about to just go crazy, so I'm going to apologize in advance. Especially K5 or K8,
Yeah.
I think that we see the most benefit of the basic computational thinking skills, because I think that that's what we're going to be able to emphasize and try to maybe hit as many of our computer science standards through. I don't think it all needs to be driven to a computer programmer. I think that there's so many options out there, and we know that these skills are ones that are transferable and will benefit students no matter what career or path they take. But that's a really good thing to make sure it's not pushing to be or to only emphasize programming.
Yeah, I just didn't want to bring up because I didn't know if computational thinking was sort of in a different, because there are some people who kind of really distinguish the two. So I didn't want to derail the conversation by introducing that if that's not sort of the focus of the group.
No, that's good. And you said Cassidy schools are.
Yeah, Cassidy School is the one that my colleague Penny and I worked with, and it was a really small, nice little project where we basically had third graders and fourth graders, and each grade is supposed to create a little application for the grade that comes after it. So,
Okay.
And it was really fun because the students, they got to sort of say, oh, wait a minute, if I'm not fully interested in coding, I can still participate in this conversation and still learn about computer science and about coding. But thinking from the side of me as a musician, because that's what I'm interested in, but I can still engage in that. So, and it was a really fun little project for them. And I would love to see more of those things where we're saying, because it's, for me, it's funny because initially when computers were introduced in the schools, the argument was, because we had computer labs that were just, you have to go to this destination. And we started to move and saying, no, you can really integrate these into every classroom and space, whether you're teaching English or teaching computer science. But it just seems like from a computer science standpoint, we're doing the same mistake where we're saying, no, computer science is this thing that is isolated in this one little place, instead of really being that it can be equally embedded into a whole curriculum. I mean, imagine teaching a Shakespeare novel as part of a computer science curriculum. And I think for me, that kind of just tends to open up more opportunity for students to be able to see themselves in these spaces.
That's really good. I will investigate more into the Cassidy project that you were talking about.
Sure.
And that's really, really good because, again, I am more K5, K8 based. And to think about some of the opportunities even at the high school level to be more of the project-based learning, I think it has to be something practical that students are going to be able to use and do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm happy to chat with you about that anytime.
Okay.
I was a bad academic who didn't write it up and publish it. So it's sitting on the data still that Penny and I need to publish on that at some point. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too.